Curt Herzstark knew that the net was
Is that how you pronounce his name?
Curt Herzstark.
How's it spelled?
Herzstark, knew that the net was closing.
Herzstark. The net was closing.
The net was closing
Yeah.
when one of the other workers at his mother's factory was summarily beheaded. It appears that
That's a hell of a net.
it's a
a
closing
sharp
net.
net.
It's a closing net. It's a closing net that involves summary execution.
I don't want to work there.
It appears that two of the other workers, I've got their names as Zur and Brittner,
Zur, that's a beautiful name.
had been listening to English language broadcasts, on radio broadcasts. And stupidly, as well as listening to them, they'd gotten their typewriter and had typed it all down for distribution.
Everyone knows if you don't want to get busted, never type anything down.
Realistically, yeah. I
just
mean,
don't.
you listen to the radio and you go, oh, I was listening to the English language radio, and they said
Words. Sadly, I didn't understand most of them because my name is Hertz.
Brittner.
Hertz
Brittner and Zur. Anyway, someone discovered the typed copy. It was discovered, and the Gestapo turned up.
Good.
Gestapo turned up, and as soon as they said, "Who owns this typewriter?" Then Zur says, "The typewriter is mine," or it was found out, and he was beheaded instantly on the factory floor.
What the fuck? I didn't know that was a Gestapo thing. Beheading on. I was expecting this to be like 1800s.
No,
Not so much.
no, it is. No, it was his mother's factory.
Yeah.
So Curt was kind of the boss, and in fact, I'll tell you a bit later. He was kind of the boss, so he stepped up to intervene. But of course, one of the rules of Gestapo is don't intervene.
No.
He described much later, Curt described in an interview, and a lot of this comes from an awesome interview by the Charles Babbage Institute. He said, the Gestapo threw me out and said, that is impudence, that a half-Jew dares to speak on behalf of these people.
Half Jew.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he wasn't using his Jewish half to speak. Maybe his bottom half was Jewish, so it's okay.
I don't know how to, well, okay.
That's the argument you make. No, I'm Jewish from the waist down. I speak with my German non-Jew
I
voice.
don't know if the Germans liked or didn't like that. The Nazis were pretty much any half, they didn't like it. Anyway.
Yeah, there's a hint. Yeah, okay.
The net tightened. 8 days later, Curt Herzstark was invited to give testimony on behalf of Brittner, the other arrested worker. So they brought him into court. And of course, the Gestapo, they don't really care about anything. They don't care about Brittner here, there.
Or courts.
No. So they arrested...
So the runs, we try you and then kill you. It's
Yes.
like, what, are we going to see the outcome of the trial? We are not.
No, he didn't get that. He was arrested, Curt was arrested, and put in what was called protective custody.
Ah, yes.
His house was searched,
Yes.
and he was held in a Jewish cell. Accused of supporting Jews.
Jewish cell. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it was circumcised.
Maybe. He was accused of supporting Jews, aggravation, and having an erotic relationship with an Aryan woman. They had some postcards and letters that they found in his apartment where...
Do you have any of those postcards?
I don't know. I don't know how erotic they were. I don't know how erotic you want to go on a postcard. Like, I think it's a little bit...
I'm also erotic Aryan porn is very niche.
Probably I'm sure
isn't.
it's just like all
don't call
porn.
it that. No.
Like it's all porn. And
It'll
I
be
just
blonde
think going full on erotic on a postcard is a pretty big call. So
No one
anyway,
will read it because it'd be impolite.
Anyway, Gestapo found them, and he began what he called the path of suffering. He went from Vienna, where he lived, to Linz, to Budapest, to Prague, and further. I was in the prison in Linz overnight. There was a small room, maybe 20 people were lying on the ground.
Jewish room?
Probably. Absolutely nothing. No changing room, no toilet, no nothing. We stood with vermin. The next day they were shipped to Prague, to Pankraz prison. This time there were 50 people in the room, and he says, I became acquainted with the SS for the first time.
Okay.
I have to tell you about that. So I was delivered to a cell there that was not as big as, I don't know. He says this room. I don't know how big the room he was doing the interview in much later was. But anyway. Small, and there were 50 of us crammed in together. Again, no toilets, no bed, no nothing, no lavatory. There was kind of a sink, but otherwise nothing. And that was where we slept. The next day, a guard came in and whipped them all because
you're in prison. Morning.
And the day after, he went to Buchenwald. Now, Buchenwald, as you can imagine,
holiday camp.
horror story.
Yeah.
Horror story.
Fuck.
It would be too much and range too far if I were to tell you all of the details, said Curt later. In any case, it was a really terrible story. I was already spiritually at zero. I was completely broken.
God.
He spoke in this interview of back-breaking labour at first, the torture, routine torture, and being forced to watch summary executions all the time.
Jesus.
But
Fick.
one day, as Curt tells it, I was called into the commanding office. An SS officer was sitting there. He had my life history in his hand, and he said, "Your factory has delivered valuable things to the army. Listen closely. If you follow our commands obediently, you will find life bearable in the camp. In particular, I hear you have been working on an invention. We will allow you to continue working on that invention. And
Humanitarian invention?
if it is good, if this invention is good, if it is really worth something, at the end of the war, we will give it to the Führer and he will make you an Aryan." Today,
Nope.
I'm going to tell you the story about this invention. Welcome to The Wholesome Show. Science stories for people who sit up the back of the classroom.
And who worry about German inventions?
No, it's a good invention.
It's a crazy how much I don't believe you right now.
This is a happy story. I mean, I know
They
it
usually
started
are.
with beheadings. This one,
Yeah.
this one is a happy
I
story.
know how it ends. It ends with, he was made an Aryan. It's all fine. We have removed your Junus.
The Wholesome Show is me, Will Grant.
I mean, Dr. Roderick Griffin, please don't make me an Aryan Lamberts. It's too late, really.
I think, yeah, you can't really do anything about that. And The Wholesome Show is brought to you by the Australian National Centre for the Public Awareness
Of inventions.
and how to treat factory workers.
And Buchenwald.
And science.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that bit.
All right.
Did this like my I'm going to guess, right? I'm going to guess it's a humanitarian aid kind of invention
Humanitarian
that produces food from the air.
Just for listeners,
for suffering people.
Just for listeners, I have
He has a small box.
I have a small box. I have a small box in my hand.
It's the size of about, I'm going to say, 8 cigarette packets stacked on top of each other. The standard measure.
I was going to go, you could go like a large, you know how the baked beans come in the 1 for 1 and the 1 for 2?
Nope.
It's the one for the whole family.
How about tiny a box for dog shoes?
Yes.
It's about the size of dog shoes. If dog shoes had boxes, this
Depends.
is how big it would be.
My dog.
4 shoes.
Yeah, no, like a big dog. Like there are some big dogs that it wouldn't be, but it's a box for 4 dog shoes.
Yeah. you know the type.
This story starts as close as I can reckon, 2 generations earlier.
Ooh.
So you see, 1870, long before Curt, our hero here, was born. Kurt's,
Is he our hero?
yeah, he's a hero.
Okay.
You can think good things about Curt.
Okay, thank you.
I can tell you in advance. You can think good things about Curt. Don't worry about that.
I used to worry about liking people, but now yeah, okay, good.
No, there's some other baddies.
We love you, Curt.
There's a baddie prince.
Oh,
and-
this is great. Is he a vampire? No, don't tell me. I want to be surprised.
but no. So 1870, long before Curt was born, Kurt's grandfather, Benjamin Herzstark, was down on his luck in Vienna.
Yeah, we've all been there.
I know. As a place to be down on your luck, Vienna
do.
seems nice. It's very, very Hitlerite too.
Strudel will keep you alive.
He had a wife and 2 small kids, but he couldn't really find his real profession. He tried things, took his head, but it never really stuck.
I'm the same. You're the same. We're the same. We don't really have a real profession yet. One day when we grow up.
Yeah, well, podcasting, obviously. But he'd heard that far, far away in the amazing land of Denver, Colorado, a fella could put his flag in the ground or plant his boots or his dog shoes, and he could stake a claim to some land, and that would become his. So he said to his wife and kids, okay, you stay here in Vienna, eat the strudel, I will go to America, and you come out later.
Not just America, Denver.
Yeah, I'm going to Denver. I'm going to Denver. I'm going to Denver. Yeah.
Very, very specific.
So he arrived in America, and he wrote a letter to his wife saying, I'm super hopeful that you come out soon.
Be cool if, hopefully.
And then nothing.
Yeah, right.
That was the last letter that his wife, Stephanie, heard from Ben Herzstark.
Oh, shit.
However.
So this is Grandpa.
This is Grandpa. This is
okay,
Grandpa.
right.
However, a few months later, Stephanie did get a semi-official notification. Now, I don't know why it's described as semi-official.
Right.
Like someone just wrote to her or something like that.
They were sitting outside the official building when they wrote it.
Yeah,
Or touching
possibly.
it. Yeah.
But I'm leaning on the courthouse,
Yeah.
and this is what happened. I don't know. Poor Benjamin, Curt's grandfather, he had died. He'd been killed by his boot nail. Somehow,
Because you're not supposed to eat them?
I don't know, blood poisoning.
Oh.
I think his boot nail. This is total cowboy time. He had like nails in his boots,
Yeah.
and one of them has jabbed into his foot, and then probably he's got tetanus or something like that from his boot nail.
Fucked up. How did he die? Shoe.
Yeah, it's like
Did he choke on it? No.
It's so cowboy though. Like,
I've seen hobnail boots. Like when I was a youngster, we had the army cadets, and one dude, for some reason, the boots he was issued were literally hobnail boots. Oh. And so he'd walk around, and it's like take a bed of nails, turn it upside down, and walk on it. Except the blunt ends are on the bottom. It was like he was literally walking on nails.
why would we do that?
I don't know. You pay a lot at a fancy school for that.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure.
He was the only guy. He was really short too, the lucky bastard. It really went well for him.
I don't know that's anything to do with the hobnail boots.
No, it was just is compounding the troubles he had.
All right, fair enough. What was I going to say? Yeah, so that was sad. That was very sad.
Yeah.
Now, Curt's father, Samuel Jacob Herzstark, was just 3 years old at the time. He probably knew, but he probably didn't know very much. So he went and did normal things. He went to grade school and then 5 years of high school. Eventually, his mother, the widow Herzstark, ran out of money. So Samuel had to interrupt his studies, but I don't think he was terribly troubled by that.
No.
He was totally entrepreneurial guy.
And so we're talking late 1800s?
Yes, yes. So this is going to be 1890, 1896-ish, something like that. He ran out of money and said, all right, I'm going to go take an apprenticeship. He dived in first to a sales apprenticeship in a factory where they made catalytic converters for water faucets.
No shit.
Yeah.
Catalytic converters in the late 1800s for faucets.
Yeah, you turn the tap on and it converts your water into soft water or hard water or something.
No shit. Sorry, that's blown my mind.
I literally, when I was researching this story, I literally thought, I wonder about that. I looked it up and I was like, that's a lot more boring than you think.
Bugger.
I know. I thought catalytic converters were like in your car and they did
in
some
the
sort
70s.
Yeah, I had no idea. But
yeah, they take all the poison and concentrate it and then you throw it away later.
Is that what they do?
Yeah, they used to take them out. They got to a point where you buy a new car with a catalytic converter when I was a kid and the mechanics would I can get rid of that for you because it fucks your performance. It's great. It's great. It really went well.
That's like in my shower, I took out the, sorry, this is illegal, but anyway, I did.
The water restrictor.
The water restrictor.
Yeah, because you want to shower, not a trickle. I'm not here for a trickle. If I want to get dribbled on, I can lie in the kitchen sink and be dribbled on. I want to shower. I want a cascade. I want a waterfall.
Or another way. Anyway, as Curt described later, Daddy Sam received practical experience not only in sales but also in filing, turning, and boring.
Cool.
He learned everything there. Everything that you need, filing, turning, and boring. Anyway, he was quite successful at a whole range of jobs. I think that there's one little story that his son told, Curt told, that he quit school and then he was employed back as a teacher straight away in the school as well as going to work. So I don't even know how that works, but I like that concept.
The same school that had the hobnail boots.
Possibly.
So when that I was at, very fancy private school comparatively, sometimes dudes would get their very basic degrees. They'd go and join the army and shit. And if the army didn't like them, threw them out. Suddenly they'd appear a year later and they were like a commerce teacher. And you're like,
commerce.
And you look and go, what the fuck
what
are you
do you
doing
know
here?
about
What are you doing?
There's
I got a
cash
pass.
register and FBOS machine.
I got a pass degree and the army didn't want me. I'm your teacher now. It was really hilarious.
Look, maybe that's what it was like back in 1895.
And 1985.
Yeah. Okay. He worked in a range of jobs, but there was something nagging at the back of his brain. As a 25-year-old, he's like, damn it, I'm going to go to America and find out what happened to Dad.
Yes.
He didn't find anything.
Oh.
So he landed in America, looked around for a while, didn't actually find out.
Did he go to the wrong part?
But fate did intervene.
Yeah.
And he landed a job at the Remington typewriter factory.
Hell yes.
I know. As everyone when fate intervenes, you think, okay, I'm going to get a job at the typewriter factory.
Dream job. It's 1910. I want to make typewriters. Yes.
I don't know. Maybe it was really cool, but
Pretty intricate beasts.
yeah, probably. And here's the thing: there's a streak in this family of a deep abiding love of fine precision mechanics, and they
Really? A German family?
yeah, German Austrian, like they describe themselves as routinely becoming mechanics, but precision mechanics.
Oh, yeah.
They are all about the finest.
Make it tinier.
Yes.
Sharper.
Anyway, as Curt says later, Samuel stood out. He came up with a variety of different factory and technical innovations. This is how you can make a factory run better, or this is how you can change your typewriter, all these kinds of things. And the people there said, okay, you should go back to Europe and you can be the importer guy for Remington typewriters. So he's like, all right, okay, I can do that. He went back to Vienna.
Okay.
And he established the Rechenmaschinenwerk Austria, Herzstark and Co.
Flawless.
I think it means factory owned by Herzstark.
Factory is, I think, Fabrik.
Yeah, Rechenmaschinenwerk.
Machine Works, yeah. That's
Machine Works.
Rechen? I don't know what Rechen is. It's the place.
And they would make, import, and modify a whole bunch of business machines. And business machines at the time, typewriters is one of them.
Yeah.
That's a big category. But they're looking at all sorts of mechanical sorts of machines that largely in offices.
Smart. My God, the money.
Totally.
Oh, my God, the money.
Totally. Now, the thing that really stuck in Samuel's brain was one line of business. And it was the machines that were called four-function machines. Or...
front and back, up and down.
Kinda. Machines that could... mechanical devices that could add, subtract, multiply, and divide.
We call them calculator.
Calculators. They weren't called calculators until much later.
Were they difference engines?
Calculating machines.
That's calculator.
I know, but yeah. Actually, they were mostly known by their brands at this time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like the guy who invented the first calculating machine.
Fred Calculator?
No.
John?
Although there was a story like that recently that I was like, Shrapnel.
Shrapnel?
Yeah, shrapnel was invented by General Shrapnel. I was like, you're kidding.
You don't invent shrapnel.
Look, it's shrapnel.
When shit explodes and bits go everywhere, I just noticed that. That doesn't mean you invented it. I can point at things. That doesn't mean I invented them.
Whoever says it first, like you get it.
It's a rod. No, it's not. It's a piece of junk on the ground. You did not invent that.
You'll be surprised. Shrapnel came up in my research, but didn't make it into this story. Didn't make it in. But
next week. We got a lot of next weeks these last 2 weeks.
Right. What was I? Anyway.
I don't know.
Curt. Let's get to Curt.
Okay.
Curt Herzstark was born in Vienna, 26th of January, 1902.
Yeah.
The first of Samuel and Marie Herzstark's two children. Mm-hmm. As Curt later described it, the marriage was a civil marriage because his father was born a Jew and his mother was a true Christian.
Because if they'd been the same, they could have had an uncivilized marriage.
Yeah, they could have had a church marriage.
Real marriage.
So it wasn't not a church marriage.
Fake marriage.
Yeah.
Half marriage.
He said, but they were both free spirits. My father left Judaism because he had no affiliation and remained without a creed.
That's fair.
He just loved machines.
Same reason I left it.
Okay. My mother left the Catholic Church and joined the Lutheran Church, and the children were brought up in the Lutheran Church because it was the pleasant religion.
Do you know I was actually baptized Lutheran?
Is it the pleasant religion?
Yep. It was delightful. It was more like a shower when you take the water limiter off. It was. They didn't splash water on your head.
I was reading that, and I did not. I guess it depends on what you're comparing with. I did not think Lutheranism was the pleasant religion, but anyway.
In later years, earlier years, I think it was a little tumultuous.
Yeah, okay. So parents were free-spirited and pretty modern, and Curt described it as a totally loving family, except for one dead shit. But anyway, totally loving family.
And so yeah, rapey Uncle George. But other than that, it was great.
And Curt himself was part of the family business from pretty much day one.
Okay.
From my youth onwards, my father concerned himself with me. as I was with my father, whenever he sold anything, and as a child, I attended exhibitions. My first exhibition was in 1910. This is when he's 8. And there's a nice picture of that. And I am so happy.
I bet he was blown away.
Look, this is the picture of the young Curt Herzstark driving.
Yeah, he looks blown away.
Driving this, he's totally wearing sailor boy Austrian clothes of the time. Like he's Sound of Music, driving a weird calculator
And
device.
he has my haircut.
He does.
That could be me. That could be me as a kid. Except I was blonder.
Really?
That's me.
Really? That's awesome.
Before the weight of middle age.
There was an international office exhibition in Vienna in the so-called Gartenbauheim. The exhibition was opened by the daughter of the well-known Viennese mayor Karl Lueger, which is I assume all Viennese mayors have been called Karl Lueger. It just seems so right.
Also, I assume he was named after the pistol, or the pistol was named after him.
No, but
we had shrapnel. Now we got Luger.
No, there was a bit in this story, like the Walther PPK, like the Walther.
No, like James Bond's in here.
No, but they were competitors at one point. Pistols and typewriters. Anyway.
Yeah, I get confused sometimes too. I was going to write a thesis, but I shot 12 people instead.
So this is the International Office Machines exhibition, and Karl Lueger's daughter opened it, and then came all of the royal dignitaries. I became acquainted with them all, and I was a miracle child in his father's display booth. And one encouraged the people to give me, an 8-year-old boy, 5 and 6 place multiplication problems. So this is like, what is 10,412 times 28,742? And I
use the machine.
Would calculate them on my calculating machine.
That's awesome.
I would like to stress that I could never have done that on paper in my head.
Loser.
But I had been well taught on the calculating machine. So
that's cool.
The people would give him numbers and
as a kid, if you're into it, you would be loving that shit.
And then like there's the Princess of Austria, and she says, "Tell me this," and out pops this number.
Can you tell me what 9,614 is divided by 733,607?
And then 9. Sound of Music plays, and out pops a number.
Yep. The bit I love about that is you could tell them anything, and they'd go, "That's amazing."
That's true.
It's
That's
11.
True. But maybe someone is out the back working it out on chalk or something like that.
No, I'm sure it's true, but I mean, in reality, though, you could literally have gone, "Oh, that's 114.6."
You don't know. Maybe Austrian princesses of the time were awesome at just doing math calcs.
You have me there. It's probably true. That's
anyway, right. So the people were amazed. It was like a miracle child. Anyway.
So exciting. There was a little kid. My God, that would have been awesome. The adults think you're amazing. You'd sit and they want to interact with you, and they're wearing tiaras.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Anyway, fantastic. Kurt kept hanging out with his dad, but he finished lower middle school, and his dad said that it did not make sense to finish the normal high school and waste years studying technology there, because in the normal high school, what was taught in our field at that time was uninteresting. A typical high school taught something about storm drains at the time, but never any fine mechanical work.
This is what happens to water when you pour it out.
So we have the two high schools. One is the fine mechanical work high school, and the other one is the storm drains.
Water and buckets. I think I get water and buckets. Can I graduate?
Hey, look, maybe they were really worried about floods.
I'm going back to water and buckets. I'm thinking I've still got your solution.
So I was 14 years old. I stopped going to high school and instead went to the so-called higher state school. This was an engineering school, similar to the one in Winterthur, with a finishing examination. There I studied machine construction.
How cool.
Over the next few decades, young Curt followed his dad and gradually learned every aspect of the business machine business. Typewriters, other calculating machines.
And stuff.
And other.
Probably paper sticker, staplers, early staplers.
So he started off in the factory floor, learning a whole bunch of the, what it was called, the boring and the lathing and the machining. So he did a lot of the mechanical work.
That's cool.
Then he did a lot of the conceptual work. And then he'd think about factory process. And then eventually he went out to do sales. Like his dad said, okay, you know all of this.
The pinnacle.
Well, not quite. No, not the pinnacle. But Curt, all the way along, no, he respected sales as a key thing all the way through. He's a mechanically minded engineer guy from his core, but he knows that if you want to make a product and you want to keep making it, you have to get it to people. But he also, I think he's also got the joy of seeing people go, holy shit, maybe it goes back to the 8-year-old boy. Yeah. Holy shit, you can calculate this stuff.
Okay. And look, to be fair, if you don't sell stuff, you don't have a factory.
Oh, it's totally.
I mean, call me boring, but I'm pretty sure that's economics or commerce or accounting.
Even back in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Same. So, throughout the 1920s and 30s, he and his father came up with a bunch of innovations. They had the first electric-assisted calculator. So instead of really pushing the buttons down, it wasn't electronic, it was electric-assisted. It just helped you to turn the...
It would shock your elbow so your muscle would spasm and that would make it go down more easily.
It's still hand-cranked. It's all mechanical.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, Curt would travel all over Eastern Europe on sales trips. Well, not all of Eastern Europe, but all of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So throughout Czechoslovakia and Hungary and all of those countries. All of Czechoslovakia from Asht to Usch-Enst, so from the Bavarian Peak to the Roman Peak, then throughout all other areas around there. So he tells the story of landing one new client when he'd go out on sales. I called on a large hat factory, specifically the largest Austrian and European hat company, Herkel Brothers, in Neufenstein.
How large are these hats?
The largest. They are the largest hats you can buy in all of Austria. Like,
what do you do? I represent a large hat factory.
No one's buying these. Why?
We have 11 clients. There's a guy down in Australia. He buys 4 a year.
I'll give you their name. I came to this area in May 1926, as usual.
Yep.
I visited old customers first, who were very satisfied, checking up on their calculators. Everywhere, people told me I should go and see this Herkel company. They had just reorganized, and there was this young man there studying the use of calculating machines in the business. In 6 months, he would finish his studies. So he must be doing some sort of report on how calculators could be useful in the factory, and it's going to take 6 months.
And this is his study. So he's kind of doing a kind of a grad program.
It could be. Like, this is Austria. Is it Austria?
Based in Austria.
Neufenstein.
Oh, totally Austria. If I know anything, I know that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he would probably, this guy who's doing the studies, maybe he's looking at comparisons between different machines, different calculators.
Okay. Yeah.
He was going to buy 100 calculators, maybe more. So I tried this Herschel company. But the young man, Mr. Hulob, that was his name, when he heard I came from Vienna, said he was not interested. He only bought American machines.
Oh.
And this guy said, nothing good can come out of Vienna.
This is what 1920s you said.
This is so weird. There's 2 bits in this story.
That is bizarre.
2 bits in this story where people in Austria, and the next one's coming up in just a bit, are like, no, all the good stuff comes out of America. If you want it good, you get it. And our idea of Austria, Germany, yeah, totally.
Hipsters, like reverse hipsters.
I don't know. Maybe in the calculating machine, but the Americans did seem to be ahead.
But IBM, for example, they weren't around by then, were they? They were later, I thought, international business machines.
No. Remember, IBM had a big role in counting things in the Holocaust. People.
You mean rings and shoes, right?
I think so.
Did
they? IBM.
Oh God,
IBM had a dastardly.
IBM
had a dastardly role in the Holocaust.
Okay,
so they were around. They were
around.
Okay. Which might imply here that the Germans still didn't like in the calculating machine business. America was seen as the place to go. So
I'm
not the center of this story. So I don't have the facts on that.
Earlier than I would have expected. That's all. Yeah.
Anyway, I was naturally disappointed that this guy said, I only buy American. But I had many good customers in Neufenstein, and I didn't give up. I went to see another satisfied customer in a health insurance company. They also reported that the hat guy, Herkel Company, was reorganizing. And I explained that I'd been discouraged there. The customer wanted to look at the machine with me and then telephoned Mr. Hullabin and said, you should look at this. The end result was that I was allowed to see this new guy, Mr. Hullab, at the hat factory.
Ooh.
At first, he was short with me, but he soon saw that I knew my business and he became more cordial. He'd mainly received brochures from the other companies. They'd given him pamphlets, but Curt Herzstark could show him the machines, show how it all worked.
Right.
And then suddenly this guy's, you really get it. You really get it.
You're our guy.
Yeah, so this is why he believes, you got to be a good engineer. You got to know your product all the way through to be able to do the sales.
That's true. It's the only reason I bought an iPhone was because someone explained it to me from the chip up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that.
Maybe things were different back then. Or
can you imagine?
Or maybe these people they're buying machines for their factory and they're like, I want someone that I'm trusting if they understand it.
No, I get it. I'm just trying to imagine an Apple genius going, let me describe to you from the chip above how everything works. I really don't want you to.
So first there is electricity.
You're like,
and then...
No, I just want to buy a phone.
No,
but what
you
you
must.
understand.
You must. Electricity.
Then these wires, they're not really wires. Let me talk to you about wires. Oh, no, I just want to buy a phone.
So that guy bought 100 of these machines.
Yeah, he did.
Mr. Huller became a good friend because he saw that we gave some good service, especially maintenance service. This, of course, very important in such things. If a factory is using certain equipment, then you have to get there quickly. Okay. Throughout the 1920s and 30s, the family settled into their roles. So Samuel, the dad, he kept going in the factory for a while, but eventually he got into movies and he bought a movie theatre across town.
That's excellent.
And he's spending his time there.
I like to watch videos and smoke cones on the couch.
Yes. The dead shit younger brother, Ernst, he raced sports cars and became the city champion in skeet shooting 3 years running.
I like Ernst.
He's such a dead shit.
Funny to hang out with him.
There's a bit. I'll tell you.
Cars and shoot
there's a bit in it later where, in Curt's interview, where he just... You can see he doesn't give one charitable word to Ernst. He's like, no, fuck Ernst. Ernst is the dead shit. I don't
son
know.
of a bitch. I'm related to him. That's the only reason I don't have him killed.
And his mother worked in the factory. She was office manager and had a key role in running the office there.
Yeah.
But Curt gradually became basically the boss because he's the lead technical guy, the lead sales guy. He knew the factory in and out. He's going to be the factory guy.
And first son, right?
First son. Now, throughout the 20s and 30s, as I said before, he drove all over the place. As he says, practically everywhere in the old Austrian monarchy. I don't know how big that is. This is the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
If you imagine 119 Chicagos back to back.
Inside a Sydney harbour.
About that size, give or take a couple of football stadiums. But I mean like Wembley.
It's big. It's big.
Yeah.
There is practically nowhere with a savings bank that I am not familiar with throughout this land. I was there often for months at a time. I left Vienna with a chauffeur and a mechanic at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I was in Prague by 7 a.m. From Prague, I'd go into Osseg and then on to Budapest and so forth. I'd spend time in the factory, then just go out and back and out and back. And he says, during this period, I traveled almost 2 million kilometers by car.
Get serious.
Yeah. The most in 1 year was 700,000 kilometers by car.
In a 1920s car.
This is the thing on 1920s roads. Like I mean, maybe some of this is like this bit of the story goes until 1930. Actually, the late 1930s.
No.
So maybe there's the Autobahn. Maybe they are improving the roads.
We're still talking balsa wood, tin, and like solid rubber tires.
And he's driving. And here we go. I only had American cars. The European cars were not good at the time. The Americans had very good motors compared to the Austrians, which were not good.
Exactly the same right now. Everyone here, like, you want a luxury car? Buy American.
Buy American, not European. So there you go. See, twice. They have this huge... I had a Chrysler, I had a Buick, and then I had a Hudson, which today does not exist anymore. The Hudson went 140. It was faster than the others. So
Holy shit.
They're banging down the highway.
That's crazy because now, like, I have an Audi. I bought myself a Buick. What is it, a DeSoto? Like, no, what are you talking about?
Why would you? What an error. But, this is...
wow.
I was gobsmacked. The idea that Europeans were driving American cars that much in the 1920s.
That is fucked up. I had no idea. Okay.
But here's the thing.
So many spin-offs.
Always, instead of a back seat in the car, they had to rip that out. But to put in they had to put in the frame for the giant calculating machines that they were carrying around.
Damn right.
These things, they were pretty big. Like the smallest version was like a very big, heavy, large typewriter, and they'd go bigger.
The smallest version.
Yeah. So this is the thing, and everyone, they're buying his calculators, and they're like, "Damn, we love these things. We love the whole calculating thing."
Yeah.
But you know what would be nice? If you had it in smaller.
Yeah, could I put it in my pocket and also see pictures of naked people on it?
Yes.
If you could help me with that, I would buy, like, not 100, I'd buy 200.
Well, they said the pocket thing. Like, they literally...
We got it. Oh, really? They said, can you...
No, they literally said... They were
can
like...
you take this thing that takes up the back seat of a car and whack it in my pocket?
Well, all the people he's selling to, okay, it's factory people, but it's building foreman, architect, customs officer.
Okay,
And a bunch of okay, so if you're in the payroll, you're sitting down in an office and you're working out, that's all fine.
These dudes move around.
But there's plenty of people that are moving around.
Yeah.
There's architects out on a building site, engineers out there building roads and stuff like that, people on docks. All sorts of people want to be able to calculate live there on the fly. But they couldn't. I have to be able to pick something up. I've got to be able to carry it. I can't go 10 kilometers back to my office to use the calculator.
To find out what 2 and 2 equals.
Exactly.
Or modify my Buick.
And So everyone wanted a pocket calculating machine, but it didn't exist.
Oh.
So on the long drives, Curt began to think more and more about this problem. He's driving throughout all of Europe in his Buick, just being cool.
With solid rubber tyres.
I know.
On corrugated roads. It makes a man think.
How could you miniaturize these huge, backseat calculators to fit in the palm of your hand?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people had sort of tried to do it just by miniaturization, just making it smaller and smaller. And he's like, no. Oh, okay. His first breakthrough. I should look at everything backwards. Instead of...
So do drugs.
I don't think he ever did.
No,
I think he was very.
Like
I think he did note that his family were teetotalers growing up.
Have you ever considered losing control for an afternoon? I have not, and I never will.
I like calculators.
Yeah. Okay, so he thought backwards.
His first breakthrough. I should look at everything backwards. I thought to myself, I'll pretend that I've already invented everything. And what does this machine look like?
Okay.
How would someone use it? It can't be a cube or a ruler. It has to be a cylinder so it can be held in one hand.
Because you can't hold it. It's true. I can't hold anything that isn't round in my hand. If it's a square, I don't know how to do it. My hand doesn't work. Like I get a cramp and then I black out.
Well, look, it fits there naturally like that.
No, really, I pass out. I agree with you. Like it's like I tried to pick up a box the other day and I was out for 2 days.
But he is saying, okay, so you want to be able to hold it in one hand.
Yeah.
Like it's not a hold in two hands and you're mangling a cube.
Sure.
But you hold it in one hand and you can do some things.
Caress a cylinder.
Caress a cylinder.
Yeah, okay.
So he designed the ideal machine like that before I worked on the insides.
Right. That's very Steve Jobs of him, though. What should the delicious endpoint look like? Now make it.
A lot of people have described him as a little bit Jobsian.
Is that right?
Not quite. Just he's got a little hint of Jobsian. Like he is imagine it into being. Okay. The next problem he had was that a lot of calculators, they had a big problem with subtraction. So it's weird to think about this, but
what can it do? It can add, it can multiply, it can divide.
No, it can't divide. Nothing backwards. So
it can add and multiply.
Add and multiply. So these mechanical they're basically gears. They're a whole bunch of
everything
gears
has to crank forwards.
and it can crank forwards.
Crank backwards.
Can't crank backwards.
Okay.
And how do you do that? It's not as simple as winding backwards. You need a mechanism that does the whole lot.
Okay.
Second innovation came when his dad died. So his dad died October 24th, 1937. Mm-hmm. Immediately afterwards, I went to the company of someone to talk to him as the new boss of the Herzstark company. They all knew me. So he's a new boss. He's a new guy.
Yeah.
I travelled by train back from St. George in the Black Forest through Bodensee, Bregenz, and on the way to Vienna. I can remember I sat in the compartment alone and looked out and thought at the moment, good grief, one can get the result of subtraction figuratively by adding the complementary number to it.
Add a minus.
Not quite. I just like the idea that that's the realization you have.
Look at this forest. Add a complementary number.
Okay. Basically, if you want to do 7 minus 4, what you do is you add the complement of 4, which is 6. The complement adds up to 10.
Oh, because we've got to be decimal.
Yeah, you add that to the 7, so that makes 13, and then you ignore the 1. So there's a trick basically.
Damn, that's pretty clever. That is very clever.
And so he's like, so what we can do is you're still using this design mechanism. You have to go forward.
Yeah.
But you add a whole bunch that then negates all the other stuff. So you actually do it.
Okay.
So he had the design all there in his head.
All from being on a train in a forest on his own.
But in the late 1930s, the storm clouds were gathering.
You don't mean weather, do you?
No, I don't.
This is a metaphor.
It's a metaphor for Gestapo. 1938, Hitler achieved the Nazi dream of Anschluss, unifying Austria and Germany.
Yeah.
Bringing the Herzstark precision machining factory under the gaze of the Nazis and the Wehrmacht. The first weeks were dreadful. The mob came then, anti-Semites and all the terrible things. Anyone could show and tell you about that. In any case, we had the feeling that we would lose everything if we registered the inheritance because we were half Jewish. So
that's a solid feeling. Run with it.
Basically, the will had been that his mother and father would give everything to each other and then it'd go to the kids. So
fair enough. That's how it pretty much works still.
The idea being that Ernst would have the cinema and Curt would get the factory. I mean, that's what they both did.
Because Ernst can sit there and masturbate in the cinema. It doesn't matter if it works because he's a lazy shit. What are you doing not racing cars? Baiting?
I don't know about that.
Got my own theatre.
I don't know. He might be a good guy. He's probably not a good guy.
Nothing you've told me suggests he is.
Anyway, just at that time, just after his dad died, though, all of that, all those racist laws of the Nazis came in.
Yeah.
And they were like, if mum inherits the factory, then it's owned by an Aryan. She's not Jewish.
Okay. Yep.
And so then there won't be a problem. So
Smart.
So his mother remained owner of both the factory and the cinema.
Okay.
Because no one had to. Yeah. So they kept going. They kept going throughout the next few years.
So heading towards a 1940 or close.
Until 1943.
Oh, well.
So they went well into the war.
Yeah.
So basically, the Germans knew that Curt was an employee, but they knew that the factory was really valuable.
Yeah.
And it was making precision stuff for the army, which is totally necessary. All sorts of gauges and bits and bobs. And
you can't kill people if you're not measuring shit while you do it. I mean, otherwise you're just screwed.
It is the German way.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty much all militaries, but yes.
But yeah. So it kept going for quite a while until Zur and Brittner and their typewriter.
Listening to those goddamn seditious English language broadcasts.
Britpop.
This is the Spice Girls. Let's write down the lyrics with this typewriter. You are going to jail.
Fast forward.
Okay.
Kurt's in Buchenwald.
No.
He looked at the SS officer holding his fate in his hands. My invention? For me, this was the first time that I thought to myself, my God, this calculator, this pocket calculator that I have been thinking about for all these years. If you do this, it can extend your life. And then
that's incentive.
I started to draw the invention the way that I had imagined it.
Huh.
So he continued in Buchenwald. He was tasked, let's use that term.
Encouraged?
He was designated an intelligence slave, which meant they had...
Jesus.
I know, right? They had factories within the Buchenwald complex where the prisoners would be forced to do various things.
Yeah.
The non-intelligence slaves would be, I don't know, digging or something like that, or working. And the intelligence slaves would be doing things that are more... using their intelligence to design different things. So there's a whole bunch of factory work, precision munitions, that kind of stuff that they're doing. But he was given special permission by the SS at night and on Sunday mornings, which they had time off. So he'd spend at least an hour at night doing drawings for his pocket calculating machine.
That's nuts.
How honest that was, I'm not sure. But for me, at that time, it was naturally a saving anchor. I said to myself, as long as I draw and work on this machine, I will be allowed to live in the camp. So he's saying this is partly, I don't know if they're true or not, but it gives me some sort of guiding light. I'll keep designing my...
And it will keep me sane and even, what the hell, alive.
No, totally.
Okay.
So he worked on his invention Sunday morning in the factory and evenings for an hour while all the others were sleeping.
Because he's so motivated, those lazy prisoners.
And the machine was basically drawn up. He had prototypes basically the day that the Americans arrived.
That's crazy.
So he had dimensions, tolerances, he had everything. He had these final technical drawings.
Hi.
April 1945, and Curt started seeing what he called the Christmas trees of American bombs. So the American bombers were coming over and they started bombing the towns nearby and the camp. And
what a weird world where the place you're in, seeing everything around it getting absolutely destroyed makes you go, thank God.
Thank God. Oh my God, I know, right?
What a world.
I read a quick little story of one of the inmates at Buchenwald had in the last few days taken over the radio tower or something like that. Yeah. And they're sending these broadcasts out there saying can you come to they knew the Americans were coming closer.
Yeah.
And they got this broadcast back at one point going, hold tight, we're coming as fast as we can. And it's like, oh, Jesus Christ. Can you imagine, like, after the horrors of all of this?
Look, my old man had to flee in front of the Russian army when he was a child. Like he's a refugee from Russian invasion of Latvia. And the very few stories he told me, he tells them so matter-of-factly, I just listen to this going, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
The idea of it, nothing to the extent of these guys,
No,
but just like
not at all.
the idea that's in living memory still for a few people. Insane.
Yeah.
Just insane. Anyway, Christmas trees, American bombs.
Okay, 11th of April, American troops rolled in and the inmates were free. And the weird thing is, so pretty quickly, the American Eisenhower was there.
The American Eisenhower, as opposed to the German one.
No, pretty quickly, the Americans liberated all of the camp inmates, and then they brought a whole bunch of German townspeople up, and they said, all right, you're going to come and have a look at what happened here, which...
I get it. Like, I get it, but wow. How freaking confronting, especially if you're either living in denial or at least living in hope that it couldn't be true.
Well...
Anyway.
Yeah. In fact, well, Kurt's story here is pretty funny. It's pretty weird.
I didn't expect that.
No. Okay. After 1 or 2 days, I began to wonder, all right, what am I going to do? So he's in the camp and it's not quite clear what to do yet.
Yeah.
How can I go back to Austria? That could take months. But first you got to get your health back because he had a few illnesses, I think tuberculosis for a time, as
not
everyone,
a surprise,
all of those camps did. And the Americans said to him, don't go until you get food and everything you need.
Yeah.
But he was curious and he's like, I know where I am. I'm just up in the hill. Buchenwald is actually in the middle of a hill above Weimar, like the Weimar Republic. The town of Weimar is like 8 kilometers away. And Kurt's like, I know a dude in Weimar.
I can
walk down. But remember, so Curt had driven all over that. And
so he knew everyone in the country.
So he knew everyone in the country. He's got a sales rep everywhere.
That's fantastic.
So he's like, all right, it's 8 kilometers away.
Carl, it's me. Weren't you in prison? Not anymore. Could I stay for between 1 night and 2 years? Just got to get my strength and my teeth back. That's fabulous.
Okay, he walked down the hill. I immediately noticed that I was treated like some kind of god.
God, don't fuck around.
Suddenly, I think it's ambiguous, the God thing. Suddenly, whenever I met people on the path, they would move out of the way to let me pass because they could still see that I was from Buchenwald. I think he still had like literally the concentration camp uniform.
And by God, he means untouchable.
It's partly untouchable, but partly the people around are like, holy shit, this is freaking... They've just learned all of this, and they are horrified.
Yeah.
They are horrified.
So it's an awkward moving away. It's an awkward avoidance. God is a big call.
Yeah.
But I see what you say. Yeah.
I found this is very embarrassing for me, no? Here and there, someone tries to speak to me. Excuse me, we haven't known anything for years. And he's like, peace be with you. Thank God I am alive. You are alive. I am not a judge. Others should take care of that. So he's like, the instant he is free is like all is forgiven.
I am like Buddha.
He's like, he really...
Peace be with you, darling. Hey, bitches. Everything's cool.
Except for Ernst. Yeah,
well, he's an asshole. He's wanking in a cinema that he inherited. I mean,
skate shooting in the cinema.
Plus driving fast cars.
Yeah. Okay, so he walks down the hill into Weimar, and I thought... I know, I should look for our old Herzstark representative, Curt Müller. Of course he's called Curt Müller. That is, of course, if he's still alive.
I told you it was Curt. See, I guessed Curt. It must be Curt.
Okay, so we went to look for Curt at his old address. I found the 2 houses lying with wood smashed into pieces, and there were 2 boards across the door. I went up and rang the doorbell. Finally, an old woman came out.
The doorbell still works. I love that. The house is destroyed. That's fine.
An old woman came out. She was terrified when she saw me. I said again, peace be with you. Peace be with you. Don't be afraid. I am only a former business colleague of Mr. Müller. Is he
kind of a god.
Is he still alive? I want to see him.
Yeah.
She looked at me mistrustfully, and then Curt Müller came out, no? And again came the fuss about Buchenwald and what had happened, not knowing anything.
Sure.
Again, I said, forget it. Everything is all right. Past is past. We don't want to talk about that for long. How are you?
Is this self-reported?
Yes. Oh, this is his interview, much later. So,
because wow, you're a hell of a man, hell of a human if you can come out of that environment and go, yeah, don't worry about it, man. It's over now. It's over.
Know.
Forget about it.
And look,
that's
he, you know, look, concentration camp, and he had a slightly protected position.
Sure, that's true, but I mean, slightly protected compared to standard does not make
does
it
not
great.
Make, no, not at all. Not at all. No. But he's
wow.
walked out the gate and he's like, moving on.
Hey, well, that's done. Phew, what a workout. Yeah, fuck me. That's amazing.
Over the next few weeks, Curt Herzstark worked his way slowly back to Vienna.
Yep.
He was really scared because he knew the Russians were coming in from one side, and he thought the Russians are going to kidnap me as well because they want technical experts as well.
Yeah.
So he's trying to dodge Russians. He's trying to get through the path from Weimar, getting south down into Vienna.
Okay.
There's a bunch of different stories where he'd go to different places, and because he knew a whole bunch of people in the camp and he knew a whole bunch of his sales representatives, he could talk to a whole bunch of people and he'd find people all over the place. They'd give him a shave, they'd give him a bath, they'd help him, and they'd pass him on to the next train
Come on
station.
in, I'll shave you. I mean, who hasn't had that happen?
You make it sound like another concentration camp. He meant more, I could clean up.
There's my buddy. He'll give me a shave.
But it really does say, this guy who drove 700,000 kilometers in a year.
That's insane.
Like, he knew people in every town around.
I don't know if I've driven 700,000 kilometers at all. Maybe. I don't know.
I think I haven't. I'm pretty sure I haven't. I think of the cars, I know I've had multiple cars that have done 100,000, or a bit more, like 150 or something like that.
But you had them from new?
From new, yeah. But still, I think multiple cars that get to, you might be around 700.
I might be, because what have I been driving for, like 30?
That is such a long... I know
Okay,
that there are sales reps in Australia. Reps in Australia who,
Yeah.
you drive around any state and it quickly racks up a lot, but normal people don't do that amount of driving.
That's a butt ton of kilometers. Yeah.
So he's going down to all of his old customers.
That's excellent.
And eventually, it takes him quite a few months. Now, and there's a huge literature on the journey back from the Holocaust. People that the terrible journey there, the terrible experience there, but it wasn't an easy click your fingers.
Of course not.
Getting home. Getting home was brutal.
Well, they're
work.
surrounded by decimation. I mean, they just
totally
in every possible sense.
And you're worried about which new army is it? The Russians or the Americans? I don't know. I don't trust any of them necessarily.
It's as if you'd have a little bit of PTSD after that experience. I mean, maybe I'm overplaying this, but just a hint.
Eventually, Curt arrived back in Vienna to tears of joy from his mother. She thought he was dead, and I think she actually liked him more than Ernst.
Of course she did.
But as soon as I saw I was in Vienna, I would have family problems. My mother said, your brother Ernst, he had the cinema before, but he doesn't have the cinema anymore. I have given him work in the firm. You should somehow share your new invention with him.
God, I've just come back from being in a prison camp. Yeah, your brother's been a bit of a dick.
And she said, why not set up a partnership with Ernst? And Curt said, that is out of the question for me. I have here my life's work. He's got his drawings of the new invention. Now, because he does not have a cinema anymore, and I had the bad luck to have been in Buchenwald, I should let him participate in my invention. That is out of the question.
I can't believe he called it bad luck as opposed to slight misfortune.
He's really happy-go-lucky guy. Okay.
That is the classic, though. Like, I've known many families like that where why don't you look after your little brother? Because he's a fuckhead. Like, everything he touches turns to poo and worse, and then he starts eating the poo, and in front of people at dinners I invite him to. Like, this is not great. This is the story through time of a dude with a dead shit younger sibling.
And Curt, he doesn't go in hard, but it's clear under this is just no, he's a dead shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to bring him into my story unless necessary.
Hello, Mutti. Ernst sucks.
All right.
Yeah.
He's got the drawings. He's got the prototypes.
Yeah.
He's like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold on to my vision of making this pocket-sized calculator.
Wow.
He shopped it around a bit. He went to the Austrian Trade Ministry and said, what can I do here? They're like, I don't know about that. That's a bit weird. But a couple of days later, they brought in a delegation. And it was two delegations from like the Austrian Foreign Ministry or something like that.
Yep.
It turns out the Prince of Liechtenstein, which is a tiny little bit. Like it's a country, but it's.
If you're on a train and you go through it, and if you sneeze and then cough, you're like, what? We went through a country?
Literally. You could fit 8 Liechtensteins in the ACT, I think.
How many Chicagos?
I don't know if you could fit a Chicago into Liechtenstein.
No, I mean, how many Liechtensteins could you fit into Chicago, actually? Probably 9. I'm going to go 9.
Some of them.
What did you say, 8 in the ACT? Is that including Jarvis Bay?
Jervis Bay is pretty small. Like the bay is big, but the JBT.
So Jarvis Bay's about a Liechtenstein. Carry on.
Maybe. Prince of Liechtenstein, he said, I want to set up some industry after the war.
Yeah.
I'm going to invest. So he's looking around for different innovations in the local area.
Yeah.
And everyone started hearing about Curt Herzstark's calculator. And they're like, this is the one. This is the one. Prince of Liechtenstein says, all right, come down here. We can set up a factory. Long story short, they set up the factory and they start making these things. Prince of Liechtenstein eventually
You have one.
eventually does the dirty on him, and the prince swindles him out of money. There's a whole long saga of
Episode 6
of shitty things that the prince does, but basically they end up making 2 designs, and they make 140,000 of these calculators.
Okay, so if you're listening in, Will appears to have one.
I'm gonna do so this is a Curta 2. So Curta, it's just one of the women in his office. They were trying to come up with a name. They said it could be called the Lilliput, which means small.
The Lilliput.
And they're like, that's shit. That's a shit name.
It is a shit name.
And this woman said, oh, it's like your daughter. This whole calculator is like your daughter. So call it the Curta. Anyway.
This whole calculator is like your daughter is a strange Why the fuck do you have this?
It's an awesome thing. Look,
It is. No, I'm not against it. I'm just saying.
I'll give you a little personal story. That I grew up, my dad, engineering-ish, loves calculators. And he always had, growing up, 2 of these. This is the Curta 2, which he let me borrow for this story. The Curta 1, which was the first design, is a little bit smaller, can't do as many numbers, but it's the same basic
You should hold it to the camera to the 3 people who watch it on YouTube.
There you go. So, I mean, you can Google images, but I'm going to do some ASMR in a second. But it's a mechanical calculator. It fits in the palm of your hand. You can imagine someone designing this.
I can.
And it can do addition, multiplication, subtraction, and division up to, I don't know, 100 millions. How many digits is that? Many, many, many digits, billions or something like that.
There are a lot of numbers on that.
So I'll start off. Give me a sum that you want to do.
917,000.
Hang on, I'll do it close to the microphone. 900
and 17.
Oh, you got to tell me the what?
Oh, 917.
No. I can do that. No, what I'm saying is you got to tell me. Are we doing multiplication, addition, or
divided by?
Divided by. All right, so that's going to be a bit slow. I'll do an addition first.
I can do an addition.
No, let's do multiplication. So 917,000
times.
Oh, so just times
11 point. Oh, you can't do decimal, can you?
I can do decimals.
11.9.
I can't do. Okay. Ooh, that's an interesting question.
I've already fucked it.
Oh, no, I did it the slow way.
Oh, you have to be able to do 0.9 of a crank of the handle?
Yeah, I'm not going to get the right number now because
I fucked it.
But you listen to this thing. That's the noise of the little gears turning in as it cranks around, and you can do a whole bunch of different series. So I'll do something simpler. So I'll just
yeah. Sorry, my fault. I got carried away.
Reset it. Oh, that's the sound of it resetting. That's so cool.
And he did it with one little pinky finger.
All right, so here we go. Let's do 252 times
75.
75. Okay, so what we're going to do is you turn it 5 times first. And then you move the dial, and then we'll turn that 7 times.
Oh, so it's 5 and 70.
And then we get a results gauge over here. So it says 75 there.
Yeah.
Times 252 is it really that much?
Do you want to use my phone?
Anyway, this thing is legit just such an amazing thing because
wild.
When I look at it, the idea, there's no electronics. There is just a whole system of gears that can do multiplication and division.
It's tiny too. It really is tiny.
Fits into the palm of your hand. So
it's half a standard beer can, maybe.
I forgot to zero one of these other things.
You moron. Yeah. My God.
So yeah, they sold 150,000 of these things, or something like that, all up. And he was always like, Curt kind of got his money out of it, and he got the factory set up, and then the prince swindled him out of a whole bunch of stuff.
You can't trust a Liechtensteinian.
A prince.
It's an old saying.
So he got his money, or got some money out of it, but it's just such an amazing invention to be able to do mechanical calculation in your hand. But he reckons...
So it was literally the way he designed it is the tiny thing that you're holding in your hand. It was that small.
He said, I want something
in the early
like all of these
20th.
architects. You can fit it in your hand,
Yeah.
and you can do a whole bunch of big calculations. You want to go, okay, I got what's your soil? 8 cubic meters of soil.
12.
12 cubic meters of soil.
You, 8. How dare you?
How many trips to the people wanted to be able to do that.
Yeah,
and they just couldn't. They just couldn't. And so he reckons that they could have sold millions of these things, but,
For sure.
but the prince fucked up the marketing because he didn't do any marketing. That's the thing.
He doesn't have to. He's a prince already.
Eventually, 1972, the first pocket electronic calculators came around. That's what killed it in the end. But as a
It took
device,
until 72.
yeah, from 1952, the first versions of these came out. For 20 years, they sold quite well. They did. They were
That's awesome.
They were a big product for Liechtenstein, but.
That's probably the one and only time that's ever been said.
Liechtenstein actually make very good hammer drills.
What?
I've used a Liechtensteinian hammer
What's
drill.
their brand?
Hilti.
Hilti from Liechtenstein.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. This is the story of what is often called the math grenade.
It does
or
look like a
the
grenade.
Curta calculator,
It definitely
which
looks like a grenade.
is just a jaw-dropping instrument, but that it
Yeah.
saved one guy's life and other people around him
That's
from
nuts.
the Buchenwald concentration camp. I've been wanting to think about that for ages.
I can touch it.
You can touch it.
I won't try and use it because I'll probably break it, but that's fancy. And the fact that it's all mechanical, like we don't really do mechanical anymore, do we? We don't need to because we're so clever and we have electricity and silicon, kind of relevant to last week.
Indeed.
I mean, really, it's like we link these episodes
I
by
don't
accident.
know. I don't know if we have the mechanical capacity to think that through and design it again. I'm sure, with the plans we can make it.
But
Absolutely.
we don't need to anymore. I think we've not bothered. We've
But
forgotten.
the idea of, okay, how do you do the device in there that does multiplication and division?
And it is, I mean, it's a weird shaped pocket, but it is a pocket calculator.
It totally is.
I mean, it would really stick out. But it's still, it's literally the size of maybe roughly half a soft drink can.
Mm.
That's impressive.
Well, there you go. There you go. Something I've grown up with, and I've always thought,
Yeah.
how did that happen? And the fact that sitting in a prison camp, he's like, this is the thing that will save me.
Yeah. Calculator.
Hitler never got his version, though.
Fuck him. He didn't deserve
He
it.
didn't deserve it.
And if he did, I hope he choked on it.
Wholesome Show is me, Will Grant, and him, Rod Lamberts, and we do science stories for people who sit up the back of the classroom.
Yeah, none of you buggers at the front, though. You've got enough.